Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to the Disney Movie Marathon. Today we have an episode that is kind of a bonus episode, kind of two episodes in one. The two episodes included in this episode were recorded back in 2019 and 2020, all the way back at the beginning of my podcast days. Rachel Wagner joined me to talk about the, at the time, brand new series of Pixar's SparkShorts. These are the Pixar animated shorts that kind of have more of an indie feel, they're animator driven, and basically the artists are given free rein to do whatever they want. Rachel and I recorded an episode on the first three when they dropped on YouTube, I think maybe even before Disney Plus had even launched, that's how long ago this was. Those shorts were Purl, Smash and Grab, and Kitbull. Then a few months later, after Disney Plus had launched, they released three more shorts, Float, Wind, and Loop, and we came back to do a follow-up episode. We had talked about going back and doing another episode once the next three dropped, but we never got around to it, and now here we are, 5 years later, and the SparkShort series is over, ? They released two more shorts in 2020, Out and Burrow, and then there was nothing until September 2021 when they dropped 20-something and Nona, and I'd always kept the idea in the back of my head to go back and do those last four, we just never got around to it. And then I launched the Disney Movie Marathon as its own podcast, and I figured now would be the time to do it, and we still never did it. And then last year they dropped another short out of nowhere called Self, which was Pixar's first attempt at merging CGI with stop motion. I figured, okay, it's now or never at this point. So finally, Rachel and I have recorded a brand new episode on the 5 films that have come out since we last recorded in 2020, and that episode will be out next week. But first, since it's been so long since those original episodes, and since I have launched the Disney Movie Marathon as its own podcast, I figured I would go back and put together a brand new cut of both episodes in one, talking about all 6 original SparkShorts that were released in 2019 and 2020. So the first one we'll talk about is Purl by Kristen Lester. That was the first one released probably a couple months ago now. They kind of staggered the release, so there were 3 so far, and Purl was the first. I guess for people who may not have seen these, they're on YouTube, so go to YouTube and watch them if you haven't, but this one is about a ball of yarn who joins the corporate world, and it seems to be an allegory for maybe, I don't know if all women in workplace, but specifically Kristen Lester's experience when she tried to join the workforce. She had an experience where she joined something that was the company she joined was like really male oriented, and she felt like she had to become one of the guys in order to fit in. So basically that's what Purl is about, except it's a ball of yarn instead of a girl who has to become one of the guys in BRO capital.
Well, it's obviously an allegory. Yeah. I felt like it was saying way more than even just her particular story, but just with what's happened with Pixar, I felt like it was kind of an apology in a lot of ways that we're going to do better. And because we basically found out through the whole John Lasseter thing that it was kind of a boys club. And we kind of knew that a little bit from what happened to Brenda Chapman with Brave. But as things since the problems with John Lasseter kind of were unearthed, we found out it was a lot more of a boys club than we wanted to admit, and that people were kind of protecting him and were instead of protecting the women. And so I took it as a real kind of a gutsy move on everybody's part to kind of say, look, this is what we were, this is what was happening, and we're turning over a new leaf. We're going to do better, and we're going to be more accepting.
I thought that at the very first two, and then I watched the behind the scenes. Kristen, a lot of people put their own ideas into here, but Kristen Lester, who came up with this, said that this was based, the overall idea was based specifically on her experience joining the animation world, which she said got significantly better once she joined Pixar. So I'm wondering if Pixar is such a boys club, or was such a boys club, wherever she worked before must have been really awful.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me.
No, not from what I've heard about a lot of the industry. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So, did you like the short overall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is my favorite of the three.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought it was the most like emotionally true, and as a woman, I definitely related to the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely related to being in like a toxic workforce. And whenever there's anything about sort of work as a theme, it always really almost always rings true for me, because I had my own kind of miserable experience with a job, and so whether I quit, and it was a real defining moment of my life. So I relate to those themes. And so even though it was a ball of yarn, it was obviously more than a ball of yarn. And so that's right up my alley.
Okay. I would say this is probably not anything against the short itself, because I did like it. This is probably my least favorite, but only because I really connected with the other two more. But overall, I thought that this was creative and I did like it. The only, I guess, my main problem with it was, which is my main problem with most allegories, is that it seemed slightly too on the nose at times. Like it started out with like BRO capital, bro capital, which kind of annoyed me because it's like, I don't know. I like it when these kind of things are like understated, but I can understand why they went for the on the nose approach.
I don't know. It's a short. You don't have that much
Yeah.
time. I'm
That's
fine with it.
yeah. That's why I wasn't too upset. That was just like my one main nitpick was,
Mm-hmm.
but that's my main nitpick with just about any allegory, because it always seems like people can't write things in subtly. They have to make it too obvious what they're going for. But like I said, I understand why they went for that approach with this one. I forgot I had one other nitpick about it. She made a joke about spiders not crocheting webs, but she mentioned specifically that the joke was about needles. But when you crochet, you do not use needles, you use a hook. And I know that because I knit and I can't crochet because I can't figure out the hook. I was like, you do a teeny bit more research on what crochet is before writing a crocheting joke.
That's funny.
So, was the women in the industry the only thing that you got out of this? Because I noticed two different themes.
That was and I just felt like it was, we'll do better.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt. Like, and I'm like, okay, good. This is good to see that they're doing this. And overall, just on the part of the three shorts together, they were very encouraging to me, because once these sort of current projects get done, I feel like this is such a good sign coming out of Pete Docter's leadership, that he's encouraging this, and that he's encouraging the new ideas and new people working on these things. Because it was interesting. The director, I can't think of her name, of the Bow short, said that Pete Docter was her main sort of mentor and really encouraging her. And that was, some people didn't like it, but that was a very original idea, original short.
Mm-hmm.
And that's making me very happy. And I wouldn't expect anything less from Pete Docter, but it's just nice to see the little inklings of his leadership, I think, coming out already.
Yeah, from what I've heard about Pixar, Pete Docter was like the best choice to take over.
Yeah. And I was a little bit worried when I heard that he was getting, they were going to be the replacement. Of course, I adore Pete Docter. I've absolutely loved all three of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want him to stop making movies because he has the burden of leadership, but hopefully he will keep doing both. But this was just really made me happy to see all three of these and just think, okay, we're getting back, hopefully, to kind of where we once were with these new, fresh ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have liked all of the sequels pretty much that they have done at Pixar, but I am very excited about the idea of more Pete Docter inspired original films coming from the whole team. So I was just very thrilled with really all three of these for that reason alone.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what kind of things they come out with now. But the more creativity.
Yeah, but the other thing about the Purl is that even just her coloring was so different than the others, and it was interesting that I can only imagine it would be very much so in animation, because when I worked in graphic design back in college, it never failed that I would design something with a certain color scheme that I liked and I found attractive, like very purples and dark blues and pinks and things like that my eye was attracted to. And it never failed. When I would show it to the guys, they would always want it to be orange and blue. Orange and blue. No. Then I showed him an orange and blue. Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And I can only imagine that as an animator, there are going to be, that could be really frustration. That could be very frustrating when you try to show a sort of, not that all girls like a certain thing, but it was a thing that I knew, that I saw in my job, that all the women almost always liked a different color scheme than the men. And so it just makes me think that it must be frustrating sometimes as an animator, as a female animator, to have a certain aesthetic, to have a certain style, to have a certain way of doing things like Purl had, but it just is not part of this. It's just different because we're not the same, men and women, no matter what people try to tell you. And anyway, so I thought that was interesting, that she was bright pink. And then you see these other, and some people might think, oh, that's gender stereotyping or whatever, but I don't know, in my experience, it's true. And I can only imagine that sort of her softer colors, as a softer feel as a ball of yarn coming into this work environment, that is pretty true to being an animator in a male dominated profession, which it is. And how your view of what's pretty and what's effective could be just kind of trampled upon. And anyway, so I was like, yeah, that's right. I totally get it. So.
Well, I was going to say, too, that the other main thing that I saw in this was there seemed to be a really strong message about changing yourself in order to fit in.
Yeah.
Like with Purl, she basically knitted herself into something slightly closer to what the guys were.
Right.
And by the end, she realized that she had kind of lost herself because of changing what she was so much when the next ball of yarn started working. And she decided to go back to who she was before. And I really liked that. Kristen Lester, one of her quotes in the making of video that I watched, talked about how she realized that since she was basically one of the only women where she worked, she said after she joined Pixar, she was working with a lot more women than she ever had before. And she said it made her realize how much she had changed herself and how much of the female part of herself she had buried in order to fit in at this other place.
Right.
Which I thought that was really interesting and a good secondary message to the short that more people can relate to. Like, don't change yourself to fit in with a bunch of other people.
Agreed.
Okay, I think that was all my thoughts about Purl. Did you have any final thoughts? Or
no, I mean, that basically covers it. I really like anything that's kind of about themes of work and the workforce and all that, so it really spoke to me.
Okay, the second short that was released is Smash and Grab by Brian Larson. This one, until I saw the last short, I thought there's no way that anything could beat this short. I loved this one so much because, you know me, I love sci-fi things. And I just loved these two little robots. Basically, for people who may not have seen it, the short is about two robots who are running a train. They are very specialized. One is chipping away at a block of stuff that becomes fuel, tosses it to one who throws it into the furnace, and that's all they do. That's their entire life. But they can see out the train windows that there's these other robots who are free, and they decide, well, one of them decides that he's going to escape, and he eventually finds a way to break his friend out, and they evade security robots and escape the train and get their freedom in the end. And it seems like really simple, but there's just something about these robots that I just loved. Their character design, the way they moved, everything about them, just they had so much personality, and I just really loved them.
I thought this one seemed like the most classic Pixar, like an old school short to me from Pixar. I enjoyed it. It was cute enough. It wasn't as interesting to me as the Purl one.
It wasn't as deep. It didn't have as many messages. It was just basically about wanting freedom, I guess.
Yeah.
Freedom and friendship. But overall, I loved the short. I don't know. The music, sound effects, I love the robot voices. I just loved it. It was
You'll
just
have to watch it again. I watched it fairly quickly.
Another thing that I thought was interesting about it too was in the behind the scenes, they animated the robots with motion capture, which is that something that Pixar has done before? Because I was under the impression that Pixar didn't even use motion capture.
Yeah, I kind of was too. I did like the weird way that the train kind of split apart. That was sort of weird.
I can understand why they went with motion capture for the robots, because once I saw the people moving and I recognized them instantly as the way the robots moved, it fit. It made the robots seem more human, even though the people were purposely moving in a non-human way, like waddling and walking strangely. I thought it was a really creative choice as a way to animate the robots.
Yeah, it was pretty cute.
So then we get to the last one, which is Kitbull by Rosie Sullivan. Once I saw this one, I was like, oh, Smash and Grab isn't my favorite anymore. I loved the short. And this is another one, like if Smash and Grab was unique at Pixar for using motion capture, this is unique at Pixar for being a 2D animated film, which is not something that Pixar does. I think they did like one sort of educational short for Ratatouille that was.
They had that, and they had Night and Day, which was kind of like that.
Night and Day was sort of hybrid, though, wasn't it? Because there was like 3D inside 2D.
Yeah, yeah.
This one is
kind of in that thing, but
this one is like all 2D. It's built within a 3D environment in the computer based on the behind the scenes stuff, but it's all hand animated, hand drawn stuff. I loved the design for this one.
It was really cute, for sure.
To fill people in on the backstory, it's about a little kitten who befriends an abused pit bull and helps him escape his cruel master. And it's another one. It's a really simple idea, but it was executed so well that I just absolutely loved it.
It was really cute, no doubt. That little doggy was adorable, and it was very sad.
One thing that I noticed, though, was, and I guess we could probably circle this back to Purl, too. It seemed not really more adult, but slightly more mature. With Purl, it was they were talking about a mature subject, and there was some mature language.
They did have a certain maturity to them, I think, particularly these two that you're talking about. There was a certain mature tone. It kind of reminded me of the of the Western one with the clocks that was also made by some Pixar animators.
Oh, I think I remember that. That was a while ago. I think it had a
Borrowed Time. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of that in the sense of it was something different and experimental and a little more mature.
This one wasn't more mature in the language aspect or the themes aspect. It was more mature in that it was slightly more violent than I was expecting with the way the dog was abused. Like there was like actual blood on him from his. I think he was being used in a dog fight. It wasn't shown, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were implying. It really helped just pull you in and make you really feel for this dog. And it really made you see him through the eyes of the kitten, because the kitten at the beginning is horrified of everything. Like everything scares the kitten. But once the kitten sees the way this dog is being treated, they eventually become friends, and he helps him escape. It wasn't like over the top graphic, but it was just enough to let you know the severity of the situation.
Yeah. It was a very sweet little short. I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked that dog and that cat. They were very cute too.
Rosie Sullivan, the person who came up with the idea of the short, her original idea was to make something like fun and feel good, and she was inspired by cat videos she was seeing online. But she said it eventually evolved into something more personal for her, because growing up she was very shy and had trouble making friends, and that eventually kind of got incorporated into the cat video idea, and this eventually became a story that was more personal and touched on a little bit of a deeper theme than just a cute cat video.
Yeah, I can see that.
I also really I loved the end when they both get adopted.
Yeah, that was really cute.
A very cute ending.
It was really cute. Adopt, don't shop, as they say.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I have. That's the only 3 SparkShorts that have been released so far. There will be more released eventually on Disney Plus, and I probably will want to cover those once they come out. So maybe you'll have to come back and we can talk about them again.
I wonder if we're going to get something in front of Toy Story 4. They're going to give us some kind of short. We haven't heard anything of anything, but
they usually release a short.
They usually do, but they don't always do.
That's true. We didn't get one with Coco.
Well, yeah, but then there's I forget which ones, but there have been ones that had no short at all. Not even a Disney long short that people hate.
I think that it's been a while if they haven't done one.
Yeah, I know that there have been some that haven't had one, but anyway, most have, and but they haven't announced one yet, and so it'll be interesting to see if they do.
I hope they do. That's one of the reasons that I look forward to Pixar movies, because you get the little bonus at the beginning.
Yeah, it's really fun. Do you have a favorite of all their shorts?
I'd have to go through the titles and see what. I'm sure I do. I like a lot of them. I like the bunny. I can't think of the name.
Bounden?
No, I don't like that one.
Presto?
Presto. That one. I like that one.
Oh, I like Bounden. I think it's cute. I don't dislike any of them, actually. The one that I like the best is called La Luna. It's my favorite.
That one's cute.
The kids scooping the stars off of the moon. That's really, really good, I think.
I liked Lava, too. Lava was good.
Yeah, Lava was really good. Because I love anything Hawaii, so. And that song was just like my song that summer.
I know this isn't necessarily a theatrical short, but I loved the recent one that was included with Incredibles 2, Auntie Edna. That one was so good.
Oh, yeah.
So hilarious.
That was really, really, really good. I guess maybe if I had to pick a least favorite, I might go with, I don't know, maybe One Man Band, but I still like it. It's cute.
Oh, that one. I do like that one, actually. I love the music in that one. The music is the reason that I like that one so much.
Yeah, I don't dislike it. It's probably my least favorite, though. But,
yeah, there's none that I really dislike either.
Yeah, they're all fun. Even some of the old ones are really good. Tin Toy. And
the earliest few I still haven't seen.
Oh, you should.
I need to get their DVDs so I can make sure I see them all.
Well, soon it'll all be on Disney Plus, which is exciting. But but Red's Dream was my favorite old one about this little unicycle at this shop, and he has dreams of being in the circus. That one I really like.
I'd heard the title of that one, but I didn't know what it was about.
Yeah, it's really good. They get a lot through lighting and shadowing and stuff like that. It's so early on. It's amazing.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to that one on Disney Plus as well.
And somebody saw in the Toy Story 4 trailer, you could see in one of the scenes at the carnival there was Tin Toy from Tin Toy there.
Yeah, I saw like a thumbnail or something where someone had circled.
Yeah.
Soldier
I also love Jerry's Game. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, that one we watched so many times because we would borrow A Bug's Life from the library. We loved Jerry's Game.
Yeah, it's really good.
Watch that one over and over again. And then he shows up in Toy Story 2, and that was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, cool. Well, it's so fun to talk about these. I love animated shorts. It was really fun. I did a animated film for every year that I've been alive video, which was very fun to do. And for some of those years in the 80s, there were no feature films, like none. And so I had to just watch shorts. And it actually was kind of fun to watch these old shorts from the 80s and then pick some that I liked. And that was kind of a fun experience. So it's always cool to look at shorts.
Yeah, that would make for a cool podcast too, just watching old shorts from the 80s.
Yeah, it really would. So cool. Well, thanks for having me on your channel.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. This was fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes.
Well, before we begin, I wanted to mention that Kitbull was nominated for an Academy Award. In the last group we did, we talked about Kitbull, and that was my favorite, I think. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, me too. It was really cute. So it's nice to see one of the SparkShorts recognized for sure.
Yeah. Smash and Grab, that one's great too. But Kitbull, there was something about it. It was so different. The 2D animation, it deserves a win, I think.
I don't know. I love Hair Love so much. It's
that's
so cute.
True. That one was nominated also.
Yeah,
That'll be hard. I'm glad I'm not the one choosing.
I know, me too. I haven't seen the other three. But yeah, I love Hair Love. I hope that it wins. But both of those are really cute. So yeah.
Okay, so we can start on this group. The other ones were released before Disney Plus was released. They were on YouTube for a brief window. Like, they disappeared after we talked about them. I didn't realize that was going to happen, so I'm glad we talked about them when we did. But everything is available on Disney Plus now, so if you want to check out the ones we've already talked about, they're there. And these last three were released, and Loop was the most recent one. I think it just came out a week or two ago. Either way, they're all 6 out now. I think they said they're working on some more, but for now, we just got the 6. So we'll start with Float, since that was the one that came out first of these. This one, I don't think when I first started watching, I didn't really understand what was going on. And it took until I watched the behind the scenes thing before everything made perfect sense. So I'm glad that they included all those behind the scenes things with these shorts, because you get some good insight into what's going on with that. But what did you think of this one?
I really liked this one. I thought it was really sweet. I think, you can definitely understand the frustration of a parent, wanting his child to be accepted and loved, but they're special. They're different. I thought this one was much better than we'll talk about Loop coming up, with a similar theme. And I don't know, I think most parents have kind of been there where they're just like, they just kind of lose it and forget. And so I thought that was pretty genuine and understandable. And I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, so this one, if you haven't seen it, this one's basically about this father. He has a baby who can float. And you find out when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, by the end, I think you can start to figure it out for yourself. But the floating is a metaphor for autism, because the director, Bobby Rubio, his son is on the spectrum. So he dedicated the short to his son. Like, there was a message at the end thanking him for making him a better dad. Basically, this is his story, but he made it in sort of a fantastical way. Instead of having it just be about a kid who has autism, it's a kid who floats, and he wants his kid to fit in and not be looked at and judged by everyone. Because that was the one thing that I thought was kind of weird. Like, everybody was sort of looking at, and once you find out it's about like a metaphor for autism, it makes sense. But like, if it's just about a kid who floats, all these adults are looking at him like they're judging this kid. It's like, this kid is floating. Why? What's to be judgmental about? But it makes more sense when you know what the short is actually about.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious from the beginning that it was a metaphor. But yeah, I mean, it's people would probably be like, "Oh, that's cool," if it was in real life. But the point is that just the frustration of being a parent and and wanting to help your child and not being able to do so. Like, I don't think this short is really made for children. I think this is definitely made for adults.
Yeah, I would say all three of these seem more targeted to adults rather than children, but they're not made in such a way that kids can't watch or appreciate them.
Yeah. I think it's hard because you want to protect your child, but then you also have to kind of trust them in a way, and put them out there and hope for the best. There's only so much you can protect them from.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the sort of struggle, and you see it, and he's like completely just exhausted, and so I think that's part of also why he loses it, is because he's just as most parents are, completely frazzled and exhausted, and reaches his limit, but then he immediately realizes what he said was wrong, and he makes it right.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. I really like that they did it sort of in a metaphorical way rather than having it be so on the nose. And like he said in the behind the scenes stuff, he basically said he did it in such a way that it could be about any child's difference, not necessarily just autism.
Right. I feel like that's the most sort of common, or at least in my life. I know so many people that are on the spectrum, and so I feel like that's the first thing I thought of, probably because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, it was. So the next one is Wind, and this one, I think this one might be my favorite of the three.
I wondered if this would be your favorite because it's a little bit weird.
Yeah, I really like the world that they built. This one is about a kid who's living with his grandmother. They're in sort of an underground world, and there's all these like floating rocks and just random things floating around. It's not explained what happened. Like this one and the short before it basically had no dialogue. There was one line in the other one that was used like to be like a shocking.
So it's an underground world, huh? I was thinking it was the moon.
No, it's underground, because you can see at one point they're looking up, and through this tunnel that's where the wind is coming from. The wind is from deep underground, even farther underground than they are. The wind is blowing up this tunnel, and that's what's causing all these things to float.
Oh, because I was like, why don't they need space suits?
Yeah, that's why.
I was confused.
And I don't think it's supposed to necessarily be Earth because it's sort of fantastical, magical, but it's a fantasy. I don't think there's any place like this on Earth where rocks float or whatever. But
yeah,
anyway.
I just thought, man, maybe in this world they've created the technology they don't need to have helmets in space. I don't know, but so I thought this whole time that I thought it was on the moon.
No, I couldn't figure out at first what it was until I saw this tunnel and realized that there was wind blowing up from underneath, like even further below than they were.
Oh, interesting.
But wherever they are, they're kind of stuck, and they're trying to get out, and they're building this rocket so that they can shoot up through this tunnel past all the floating rocks and escape. So basically, they come to the point in the story where the grandmother realizes that she's not going to be able to go with them. Like this rocket can only get one of them out. So, and like I said, there's no dialogue. So basically, she's pointing out to him through visuals that she's going to do this other thing where she'll be tied behind and he can reel her in afterwards. And so he's okay with this because before he wasn't on board with the idea of leaving her behind. So everything seems to go well. He finally gets out, and then he starts reeling in the rope, and it's like it takes all day. And he gets to the end of the rope and realizes she's just tied a basket of food on for him. So he had to leave her behind. And it is a sad, kind of depressing ending.
It kind of made me wonder how they're getting food anyway.
I think the food was potatoes, and since they're underground, potatoes are underground. That's what I figured.
That makes sense.
So anyway, it is a sad ending, kind of depressing, but this is another one where this is a metaphor for something else. And in this case, when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, this whole thing was telling the story of the writer director's grandmother
And it's not him in the story, and he didn't make this like a one-to-one comparison between their stories, but his grandmother helped his father escape to America after the Korean War, and the grandmother was left behind. So this story was a metaphor for his family history. The whole thing is sort of a metaphor for immigration and parents and grandparents sacrificing for their children and grandchildren to give them a better life. And I really thought that they pulled that off really well. The metaphor was perfect. And it was sad, and I wish that it had a happier ending, but I understand why it couldn't.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at something that it's particularly about the immigration and the sacrifice that many parents make to get their children immigrated to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. I did not think of that. I must admit on this one. Yeah, this one was a little, I don't know. I guess no. This one was my second favorite of the three. Because I was a little bit unclear about what the heck was going on, but that makes sense now that I should have read more into it. But yeah, it was beautifully animated. I really enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
that. What I thought was the moon. I was like, oh, that's a pretty.
It was a
I was really off with this
fantastical
one.
world.
Yeah, and it's sweet relationship between the boy and the grandma, and I certainly can relate to that with both my grandmas having passed away last year. That was
Mm-hmm.
definitely pretty close to home.
Yeah, so this one, normally I don't really care for things with a sad ending, but I did like this one, and it probably was my favorite, despite the sad ending, because I understood why it needed to have that ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. It was good for sure.
Okay, so the last one is Loop, and this one, I think this is, aside from Purl, this is the only one that has like constant dialogue through the whole story, because most of these have been
Yeah.
silent-ish, like there's sound effects and maybe some verbal noises, but not like specifically talking, other than a line or two here and there. But this one has dialogue throughout, and I found it kind of, I don't know if ironic or maybe even appropriate, since the main character is a girl who can't talk. It's kind of they have this be one of the few that they actually talk in this one, and the main character can't talk. But again, that's kind of appropriate for the story, because it wouldn't make sense to have a nonverbal character in a story where everybody else is nonverbal either. You need to have people talking so you understand that she can't. So this takes place at a camp, and the main character is a girl named Renee, and she's using a phone, and I'm not specifically clear on what she needs the phone for. I know that a lot of autistic people like repeating sounds, so I think that's all the phone is doing for her, but she just plays it when she gets nervous or upset. And she is paired with a kid named Marcus to take a canoe around the lake to make a loop. That's where the title comes from. And he doesn't want to go with her. He thinks she's weird, but the counselor makes him take her anyway. And I don't know how to feel about this counselor, because this kid, he obviously didn't have any training in dealing with somebody who is this level of like nonverbal. She can't really communicate with him very well, and he's obviously doesn't want to go with her. And I understand the counselor wants to get him out of his comfort zone and give him some perspective, but it seems dangerous to send them out on a lake together, especially with the way things turn out
Yeah,
midway through
that's
this
how I
thing.
felt too. I didn't really like this one. I think it has really good intentions, and
Yeah.
I give them a lot of props for that. But I agree with you. I felt like it kind of started to irritate me because I feel like this boy was sort of being portrayed as kind of a in a not really a villain, but in a unfavorable light, when really he was put in a situation that he was not prepared for or trained for,
Hmm.
or anything like that. And this is pretty severe case of um, being on the spectrum, where she can't talk. And she was pretty, she didn't seem to want to be there either. And so when you have a young child on a boat, of all things, having to deal with a person that doesn't seem to want to be on the boat either, that can't communicate, that's asking quite a lot. And I felt kind of just started to feel kind of irritated for the situation. And I don't think that a competent counselor would really do that. And so I didn't really enjoy this one, I have to say, despite the good intentions.
I liked how things turned out, and I liked what they were trying to do with it, but I feel like they could have handled at least the bit with the counselor and pairing them up better, because I mean, it does turn out okay. Like, he eventually figures out that he needs to just sit with her and wait for her panic attack to run its course, basically, instead of trying to do things to and for her to try and make it be over. You just have to wait it out. So I liked that they had him learn from her, but it doesn't seem like something, maybe this is just me getting hung up on this one detail, but it doesn't seem like something that should be happening, like forcing somebody into the situation. Like, if it had happened in a survival situation, I think I would have liked the short a whole lot better. Like, these two were paired up, and he's, like, to save her life, maybe he needs to learn how to deal with her, rather than an adult putting two kids together that needed supervision.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't think it was fair to either of the children. Like, I didn't feel like either of them wanted to be on this boat with this experience. And you have to have a certain kind of training how to help somebody who is nonverbal,
or
and
having a panic attack, which
having
I
a
think
panic
is what's
attack.
happening.
Exactly. And I know people are very sensitive about language when it comes to the spectrum. So I mean, no disrespect. It's just that people, especially when you're in a situation that could potentially be dangerous, on a boat, kind of a thing, that you do need a certain degree of training to help everybody have a pleasant experience.
Yeah, so this one was different than the other two in that this one was not based on a personal experience, and I think it would have been better if it had been.
Yeah.
Basically, the writer-director was Erica Milsom, and she wanted to tell a story about something she loved, which was canoeing, and she wanted two characters that would be very different and interesting if paired together, which is where she came to picking a teenage boy and a nonverbal autistic girl. But she did go about things the right way, and like, she had a group, like she brought in consultants from an autistic self-advocacy group to make sure that the story of Renee was being told in a way that would be true to life and realistic. So I have to give her props for that. Just like I said, my main issue is the counselor pairing them up with some and doing something kind of dangerous, going out on the water together. But other than that, the story, I liked their intentions, trying to get people to be more empathetic and learning about people who are different from them. Yeah. I liked what they were trying to do. There are just a couple issues with some things that happen that I feel like they could have done better, but overall, I did like a lot of the story.
Yeah, I think that they definitely had the best of intentions, for sure. And it is beautifully animated, and I liked the character design quite a bit, so that was nice.
And I also found it interesting and, well, good that Renee was voiced by a person who was mostly nonverbal herself. They had, in the behind the scenes stuff, they were showing like the recording sessions. They actually had her, she wasn't liking doing it like in a studio. It was too overwhelming for her. So they went to her house and just got to know her, and then got her to do her, I want to say lines because they weren't exactly lines, but the
Mm-hmm.
vocalizations. And I think that made it so much better, so much more realistic, because it would have been bad if they'd had somebody like trying to pretend to be somebody who has this nonverbal quality to their voice. It's so much better that they actually got somebody who is someone with
That's true.
that talks like that. So yeah, they did everything right. There's just some story elements that I kind of had a little issue with, but
yeah.
overall,
And maybe part of it is you're talking about a short, so maybe if it was longer, then they'd have more time to kind of maybe flesh out what they were trying to do at the camp or what the counselor was doing or something like that. So maybe that's part of the reason. But I definitely agree with you. I felt that as well. That this boy is not behaving badly. He's and I sort of felt like maybe he was kind of being portrayed that way. He just obviously is not equipped to deal with this situation.
Yeah, you need training when you're like taking care of someone like that.
Yeah.
And he's basically put into a caretaker role that he's never been trained for.
Right. Exactly. That's a good
Things,
way to describe
if this were a real life situation, either that wouldn't happen or things could turn out very differently. So
right.
I'm glad that things turned out well in this story.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, 3 interesting shorts that definitely feel on a certain theme that they're about differences and trying to help. Each one has sort of a parent type figure helping another person to face something different, something new, that kind of a theme.
Yeah, I feel like in some way, in all 6 of these shorts, like if you want to pick out one overall theme, I feel like empathy stands out as like maybe sort of something that ties them all together.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say there's a lot of parenting going on at Pixar right now.
Yeah, that's true.
a lot of people raising kids.
Yeah. A lot of these are in some way taking care of someone else, so parenting fits in there as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's this group, the 6 SparkShorts. I'm hoping that they come out with some more soon. I hope it doesn't take too long. I really enjoyed that they're doing these things a bit different than they normally do. Having things be a little bit deeper than they were with, like, I mean, I like the silly theatrical shorts too, but I like that they're branching out a little bit more in these SparkShorts, telling different kinds of stories.
Me too. And I've always loved the Pixar shorts, but it's nice, and they're getting a lot of female directors too. For these shorts, which is nice. They've had 3 of the 6 so far have been directed by women, so that's cool.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where they go in the future. I'm also going to be interested to see what they do with the Disney Shorts program. I can't remember what that's called, but I know that there are some Disney Shorts coming to Disney Plus as well. So we might have to do another episode when those come out to talk about what they're doing on the Disney side with the shorts.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. I wonder if they are going to I wonder if we're going to get a short in front of Onward, or if they're going to keep these to Disney Plus.
I don't know. I hope that they don't go like get rid of the theatrical ones. I really enjoy having an extra little something in front of the movies.
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't mind if they did the SparkShorts in front of them, but I like having a brand new short that I've never seen before when I go to a new Pixar film. So hopefully that continues.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Okay, well, I guess that's all for today. Do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, everywhere, on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. We have a lot of fun, cover animation each month in a Talking Disney series that we do, and then also an obscure animation series. So we have a lot of fun.
Okay, and I'll have links to all that below. Okay, well, we will have to do this again sometime.
Yes.
We'll see you then.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Disney Movie Marathon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.